I'm super delighted to have you join us and to bid you good morning and happy last installment day of Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. This is the last installment for the week. It is the TGIF edition of Morning Spring right here on Western Spring Television. And we welcome you to this morning. It's a beautiful morning. And, lots of things are still happening. And this is the show where we keep you abreast of situations, happening in and around the polity and bringing you quality analysis from the vast experience and knowledge of our analysts right here from the studios of Western Spring Television. My name is Timitope Ajijola Oluwola. Good morning and welcome to the show. Good morning, Femi.
Morning, Tokwe. Thank you very much. And happy Friday. Good morning, destined viewers. Welcome to Morning Spring. It has been an insightful week covering lots of conversations within Osho states and Nigeria as a whole, and concerning Nigeria and the international community. It has been an insightful week, and we're grateful to God for bringing us to the ultimate installment for the week today. Today, the 27th day in the month of February 2026. It's been a wonderful ride, and we are set to, hit the ground running on the show today. And very many thanks for you, therefore, keeping glued to your screen to get along with us on the conversation today. Good morning. My name is Olufemi Alagbe. Welcoming you to the show this morning.
All right. So earlier in the week, because it's the TGIF edition, it is the last day. The last installment of Morning Spring for the week. We'll be looking through, let's talk about some of the things, we'll remind you of some of the things we did, in the course of the week. Let's begin, before even the newspaper review segment proper. Let's just talk about some of the things. Earlier in the week, we had the findings, the statement released from the House Appropriations Committee of the U.S., as touching on alleged Christian persecution or Christian genocide in Nigeria. And remember, the U.S. Congressman Riley Moore and, Tom Cole have been really on the matter. They've liaised with Nigeria and through the NSA and his own team right here. They've been in Nigeria, to, carry out their findings on the ground assessment of, how that is going on. And so from that release, we talked about, we had a good analysis of, the statement release and all of those. And then that particular one that was released ending the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. And we talked about the findings and that particular statement that says that after decades of persecution, Nigeria is the deadliest place in the world to be a Christian. There have been several reactions. People are averse to that statement, and some people saying, yes, that is the true picture of things. I was just saying,
that release made us to understand the angle in which the U.S. is getting to see Nigeria and why it's made Nigeria to be a country of peculiar concern.
Right.
And I like the fact that, having an analyst here in the studio getting to say their own side of the story. And we are still looking to see what the government's reactions will be to that, because U.S. have seen it. This is the angle. There is Christian genocide, and we're still expecting the country on what the government, is going to do as regards. But we've seen the side of the U.S. Now we're expecting the government, to get to react properly.
To see if they're going to go on, and act on the findings and some of the recommendations of, and from that recommendation, you see that several people are really, really, in disagreement with the U.S. and seeing it as a trade thing, more like a trade by barter. And for the fact that, over the years or, following how the U.S. conducts its affairs, you see that there are always underlying, profit, how would we put it, profit or interest.
Benefits,
behind some of the help.
And that's what Nigerians actually avoided. That if you want to help us, come, just help us. Why do you have to? Why should there be an undertone to whatever help you want to bring? So I can remember the analyst. The analyst saying the analyst. We had two analysts on that day, and Chatham Rita. We had a conversation. We said US cannot be trusted, and I can remember asking the question: if they can be trusted, why do we have to allow them to come and help us? Yes, we still need them, but we can trust them. I remember Kade saying that we should allow them in, but we should have our eyes open, as they are helping us. Open your eyes. Right.
All right. So don't be carried away with the help. So that's one angle, or that's one conversation we had, in the past week. And one other thing, that was on the papers talking about the push to scrap Sharia and that it sparked outrage. And Mr. Adeyi was of the opinion that why do you want to divide the country along that particular line, that it's not going to all go well.
Which could lead to another religious war crisis. We're trying to solve banditry and insurgency now. We are moving from bandits into religious one. That could be very catastrophic.
And he talked about an example of Libya and how he also talked about the fact that give America a mouth, they'll take several others, talking about there may be a push also to come and establish their military base on our soil, and that was not going to all go well. A lot of things right there. And then in the course of the week as well, the president replaced, or there was resignation by the IGP, and so there was a replacement.
Is a former IGP.
Yes,
right?
Former IGP, and then he resigned, and then we now have a new IGP, and so there was agitation that about 29 DIGs, AIGs were going to be, out of service and all of that. So all of those back and forth, we had in the course of the week as well. And then there was the attack on some chieftains of the ADC, talking about Peter Obi, talking about Oyegun and all of that. So there was an attack. It was in the news how they were attacked, and there has been talks about the fingering of Okpelo, the governor of Edo State, in this matter. And he has come to say, and I saw yesterday, Sawaru was saying that Okpelo had nothing to do with that. But then people had it, where he gave out a thread and saying that Obi should notify him before he comes. And he was saying that he was saying it from the angle of, security that he knows what he has heard and all of those things. And then talking about the fact that he cannot guarantee security, in a state. What was then people will ask, what's the job of the governor? You're the chief security officer of the state. You should be able to guarantee the protection of those and the properties of those residents, in your state.
And even for anyone coming into your own territory. Exactly.
And so you should be able to mitigate, that effect. And so several other things right there, coming through, all through the week. And so also,
and we
it was this week that
the sality bots mattered.
Well, the sality bot, but that came much later. Dangote's refinery was visited.
NNPCL, GCEL,
CEO. And so it was a lot of things. People were also pushing for his resignation, or his sack. It was really in the faces and in the tools.
I remember the analogy the analyst we had there saying that you are praising your concubine. It's the analogy. It was a bit funny. You have a wife at home, but now you went and you're really praising. I could see the passion in the way he was saying it, and it was as if he was given the license to do that. He's just going to tell you, leave that office now, because the angle. The agitation was coming from was you never visited the government-owned refineries, and having to go to a private one, all you get to say is you're just railing praises and accordance, like this is good, this is nice, and all that. However, I believe if we give the GCEO of NNPCL the opportunity he has his own side of a story and as to why he has decided to do that as well.
All right, so that was there. Remember also, I think on Tuesday, we actually treated the FCT polls and the conduct around, the polls, the conduct of the government, the FCT minister, yes, some wiki, INEC itself, and the conduct of the people. We saw the videos of a particular person talking about vote trading and how she was very much interested in
I knew you were going to talk about that because that caught your attention. Watching that video, you were like, oh, I could see a reaction in this country. Like, a person, you went to cast your vote and you already have that intention. Before leaving home, the intention was there that when I get there, there will definitely be someone to buy from me. So on getting there and is like, it's not coming up. The interview came to at that moment and she's like, what else does she have to gain? There's nothing to gain. What I have to gain is what I'm able to sell today. So the mindset or the idea behind it is, let me just go there. I know that after this, it's until the next 4 years before I'll be able to have so her own dividends of democracy is at that polling unit. What she's able, the amount she's able to use to sell that very particular vote. It's actually,
Yeah.
As I used to say something, I like to just be on the, for me, I would like to be on the fence because everybody has a right to their opinion. Her own dividends is getting the money there. And I can imagine how you're going to share, at most, you're paid 50,000. How do you share 50,000 in the space of 4 years? I think Nigerians should be able to think and, with the ideology should start with we citizens. It's because we are a reflection. Our leaders are a reflection of us, definitely. So there's a need for us to have this change in orientation, a better mindset, because somebody said if there are no buyers, there won't be sellers. It's because there are buyers. That's why we are still having people ready to buy votes.
All right, so that was, a part of that, conversation. And then also, the outcome of the election, especially just immediately after the Electoral Amendment Act 2026, and talking about the area council elections out there were, 6 chairmanship seats up for grabs. APC had 5 of it.
5 to 1.
Yes, and then, the PDP had one that was in Gwagwalada. Talking about disenfranchisement, a man saying that there was restriction in movement on the day, of the elections, and he was, unable, to, really exercise his franchise. That he was not a thing to be proud of in 2026. A lot of things.
The analysts came to say that, well, either PDP or APC is still under the same administration. Wike is control. He made mention of it that, well, either PDP one or APC one is still under the same FCT. And I was like, well, he has a right to his own opinion. However, from the reports we have APC winning 5 and PDP winning 1. And I saw a report where PDP responded and were like, for them to be able to have 1, it shows that PDP is still alive and resuscitating for something big in 2027.
Right.
So keep our fingers crossed.
Okay. And then we also talked about the fact that there was, a form of displacement of voters. People saying that, the splitting of the number of voters per polling unit, how, talking
having
about
to change
some that were over 1,000, about 1,300 or so, how they were spilled into others. And our analyst, he also talked about the fact that he got that message as well, only for him to get his polling unit, and his polling unit was still his polling unit. That kind of misleading text, coming from the electoral body, it was just out of it and all of that. And so, those are, the major things we talked about, coming down to the salary board issue that has been on for months now. And then the fact that we've been having a back and forth between a salary board consulting firm that was, contracted by the Osun State government, the present administration of Governor Ademola Adeleke, to carry out an audit, of the staff payroll. And then, the findings of that report was in contravention, of the findings as well, a counter or a re-audit that was done by the administration again after that, because some people were coming out to say, I have been categorized as a ghost worker and I'm very much active, like the VC of Union Show, according to what the state government has said through Barrister Kolak Walimi, there's Commissioner for Information and Public Enlightenment right here in Osho, and also from the spokesperson to the Osun State government, and that Malam Olawale Rashid. And he was here yesterday, right? Yeah. And he talked about, some of the developments to that and how they had ultimately invited the ICPC and the FCC to the matter to carry out, a probe of the administration. All of those issues have been, much in the talks around the country, and insecurity is still very much, on top of all other situations, the church killings, all of the updates and a lot of things still around insecurity.
When you talked about insecurity, I what came to mind is it's rare in a day when we go on the paper review that we don't get to see one issue of killing or the other.
Very much there today.
Hopefully, we just hope that one day we'll have a breath and a cease of having to read all these issues of one kills there, banditry there. If it's not killing, it's kidnapping.
Right.
Like a lot of back and forth. We just hope one day we'll have to, just as you said, fresh air.
All right, so we'll be taking this quick break. When we return, it should be the newspaper review segment. Stay with us. Welcome back to Morning Spring and Western Spring Television. We're about to enter into the newspaper review segment. And from my end here, I begin with Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. The banner headline says, Presidential election to hold January 16, 2027, governorship February 6, and the riders conduct of party primaries to commence on April 23. Conduct of party primaries to commence on April 23, presidential NAS campaigns to commence August 19, and Osun governorship poll to hold August 15 this year. It's going to be a very, very busy year. It's packed. I mean, INEC has already moved the elections to January 16 and governorship to February 6. I mean, it used to be governorship first, then, all of the, but whatever it is, I mean, now we're having the campaigns as well pushing into, in the year, and it's going to be really, really close, to the elections right there. And it's close to also the Osun governorship, which is going to come some few days.
So INEC are really having a lot on their hands, and they need to buckle down and get, all hands on deck. The earlier, the better. You don't have to look at it what's in the next 2 months, the next 3 months. In fact, now is the time to start working and start acting, so that, Nigerians, we are used to hearing stories after. The reason for this is because of this. Nigerians don't want stories this time around, and I think it's high time, since the timetable has been reshuffled and amended, whichever way, and we know the dates, it's high time working should start in earnest. Every technical arrangement, logistics, and everything should be made available to ensure that everything is in place and the minds of Nigerians.
A correction to that. I was saying that we should have the governor. I think we've always had the presidential first, and
followed by the
governorship, and so that was just a mistake of mine there. All right, moving on to other stories right there. NBC moves to resolve Edo Kogi interstate boundary dispute. NBC moves to resolve Edo Kogi interstate boundary dispute. That's on page 3. NEPC wants 50% post-harvest losses threaten Nigeria's export drive. Page 12. NEPC wants 50% post-harvest losses threaten Nigeria's export drive. That's on page 12. EFCC operative justifies, EFCC operative testifies virtually in UK trial of Diezani. Page 3 of Nigerian Tribune has that story. On health, new device detects infectious tuberculosis directly in the air That's according to scientists right there. All right, some other big stories coming through. ADC, NNPP reject new electoral act. ADC, NNPP reject new electoral act, and the riders Atiku Mark, Obi, Amechi, Aregbesola, Ahmed, others task NAS on fresh amendment. Presidency carpets opposition parties, accuses ADC and NPP of unwarranted outrage. Page 4 of Nigerian Tribune newspaper has a story today. FCCPC establishes case of price fixing by local airlines. FCCPC establishes case of price fixing by local airlines, and the rider to probe foreign carriers next. Right, those are the headlines right this morning on Nigerian Tribune newspaper.
All right, so quickly let's go to the Guardian newspaper this morning with the top story here that reads, INEC ignores Electoral Act process, shifts 2027 elections from Ramadan. INEC ignores Electoral Act protest, shifts 2027 elections for Ramadan. Below that, we have over 100 terrorists stormed Benue villages, killed 150. Witness tells court. On 2027 polls below that, we have Yoruba Ronu withdraws support for APC, backs ADC. Commission documents 700,000 out-of-school children. That's, you can see that the full gist of that story on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. FG depends a credit core, targets wider coverage, disbursement. That is on page 5 of the Guardian. But coming below that, Bauchi governor says 10,000 well-armed bandits attacking communities. 10,000 well-armed bandits attacking communities. Check that on page 29 of The Guardian. Below that, Constitution Amendment delay fuels anxiety ahead of 2027 elections. Constitution Amendments delay fuels anxiety ahead of 2027 elections. Can see the picture of the INEC chairman there, Professor Josh Amokwe. You can check the full gist of that story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. On the lower strip there, the bottom strip, distiller barricade and NAFDAC. Lagos officer over alcohol sachet ban. Check that on page 7 of the Guardian. And on the upper strip, we have FG insists on state police awaits legislative backing. FG insists on state police awaits legislative backing. It's like this state police and thing is becoming reoccurrent on the dailies here, and we are still keeping fingers crossed to see what that will, how fast that can be implemented and how it's going to help in the policing structure within the various states, that's 6 states of the federation there. Moving on, Senate folds a zero capital, demands accountability as ministers defend fiscal reforms. So take that again. Senate folds a zero capital, demands accountability as ministers defend fiscal reforms. Check that on page 3 of The Guardian. Our report here, terrorists attacks on Nigeria, Benin-Niger border rose by 262% in 2025. You can check that report on page 3 of The Guardian newspaper. These are some of the stories, as you can see them on the front page of The Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, let's go now to the Punch newspaper this morning. And the banner headline here says, Electoral Act, Senate rejects fresh amendment as Atiku Obi Amechi pushback. And the riders' opposition accuses APC of plotting against e-transmission of 2027 poll results. Demand Electoral Act review, presidency kicks. And to the top strip, just above the nameplate, INEC fixes January 16 for 2027 presidential poll. For 2027 presidential poll. Bandits kill 29, abduct many in fresh attacks. Bandits kill 29, abduct many in fresh attacks. Now it is many. We don't have a figure to how many have been abducted, but it's possible in the details of that story as captured on page 7 of the Punch. You can get details of that. And then on page 20, Senate panel orders probe after inspecting burnt up Lagos airport terminal. That story right there is on the Punch newspaper for this morning. And moving down to the sides, the right side, FCCPC probes. FCCPC probes fare fixing by local airlines. FCCPC probes fare fixing by local airlines. And then on page 8 of the Punch newspaper this morning, over 200 men wielding AK-47s stormed Yelwata. Over 200 men wielding AK-47s stormed Yelwata. That's according to a police witness. 200 men, 200 bandits wielding AK-47s. So it's safe to say that 200 AK-47s or over 200 AK-47s
and not
were wielded
a place where it's not a war
bandits.
Zone. Imagine.
And the stormed Yelwata.
I'm trying to picture it, not a war zone, not a place where maybe it's terrible.
A community of people.
I can imagine the psychological feeling that the people there, like you are just in your room and you can imagine about 200 people are outside with AK-47 and you are armless, like you have nothing or even self-defense. You are just...
Even a ding gun won't suffice. All right, so these are the headlines on the Punch newspaper this morning.
All right, moving to the Daily Sun newspaper this morning with the banner headline that reads 2027 election now holds January 16, February 6, with the riders here. Party primaries begin April 23 and May 30. Campaign to start, that's for Presidential and National Assembly, August 19. Governorships and House of Representatives, September 19, 2026, which brings it back to the conversation we had earlier. This year is loaded and packed. You can see campaign starting August 19. That's for the presidential presidency and the National Assembly. And by September 19, campaigns will start for governorship and State House of Assembly. So this year is loaded, and there's a lot of somebody will say it's a season theme. We'll continue to, watch it as it continues to unfold there. However, moving on to the upper part of the Daily Sun, beside the nameplates there, we have assassination attempt on Obi. APC absolves self, blames ADC. I take that again. Assassination attempt on Obi. APC absolves self, blames ADC. Below that, we have evidence of airfare manipulation by domestic airlines. FCCPC has that. You can check the details of that. The front page of the Daily Sun there, and the continuation is on page 2 of the Daily Sun there. Below on the lower strip, the bottom strip, we have 2027. I'll not leave PDP. Makinde vows, with the rider will focus on competence, good governance, shun personal loyalty, says governor. Beside that, we have Supreme Court focus is to strengthen public confidence in administration of justice. That's coming from the CJN there. Check details on page 4. Opposition parties reject amended electoral act, with a couple of riders there, but check the full details of that on page 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper. And lastly, alleged certificate forgery Hearing in ex-minister's suit against UNN, others stalled. Check details on page 29 of the Daily Sun newspaper. As you can see them, these are some of the headlines you can find on the front page of the Daily Sun newspaper this morning.
All right, let's move now quickly to Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The banner headline, Opposition rejects amended Electoral Act. Opposition rejects amended Electoral Act. Right. About that, to the top street, bag of cement climbs to 11,000 naira. Bag of cement climbs to 11,000 naira. I think it's important to remind one another of some commodities, of some items, that used to be very, very affordable for people, or at least on the average, but that are now quite expensive, especially in the phase of this economy.
You have to think through before you purchase.
Exactly. And because people would prioritize feeding over, house building.
Although shelter is, if you look at it the other way, shelter is also important. Because if you look at the cost.
But there are alternatives to that.
The cost of paying rent.
Yeah, an alternative to feeding. I don't think so.
Well, the thing is, the
alternative to cooking in your house is eating out. And that's even more expensive.
The alternative of building your house is paying rent.
Yes. You're paying rent. Or you still under the bridge.
Well.
And face several things.
Oh, God.
Government harassment as the first one. You face insecurity because your life is not safe. You'll be robbed. You'll be assaulted. You can't be assaulted. All of those things. So, Daily Trust has chosen to remind us that a bag of cement has climbed to 11,000. All right. Sharia Council to US. You can't stop Sharia in Nigeria. Sharia Council to US. You can't stop Sharia in Nigeria, right? You will see about that. To the lower strip, INEC shifts presidential election to January 16, 2027. INEC shifts presidential election to January 16, 2027. Terrorists kill 22 in Kebbi, Adamawa. That's another one there. Schoolmates celebrates Walida's release. Schoolmates celebrates Walida's release, right? IPI urges new IGP to protect press freedom and harassment of journalists. All right, IPI urges new IGP to protect press freedom and harassment of journalists. Okay, and those are the headlines right there, making the face of Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and that brings us to the end of newspaper review segment for this morning, right here on Western Spring Television. A quick break, and when we return, it will be time to enter into the conversation for today. Stay with us.